welcome to the new episode of Fullfunnel Live. As promised, today we are going to talk about ABM expansion and retention. And there is a specific reason for this. During the past episodes, we always, on each of the episodes, we saw a repetitive pattern. So attendees were asking us about the expansion playbooks. Then we did a survey as always, and defined that it could be a good topic to talk about. The issue as well that we see with expansion, that when it comes to account-based marketing, most teams are thinking about new pipeline generation, right? Rarely teams pick up, expansion as a main goal or as main collateral. Well, in reality, for the majority of companies, especially those that are selling to enterprise, this could be one of the most important playbooks. Why? First of all, there is a huge opportunity, right, to do the cross-sell or to expand to new business units or to different buying committee groups. And the second specific reason why we put it expansion and retention, because if you are not proactively work on it, then you might lose that customer. And if you lose this customer, you can lose a significant chunk of your revenue, right? That's why both motions, let's say, both programs are coming in parallel. So today with Vlad, we want to introduce the framework. We want to introduce the framework in a nutshell. Obviously, there could be multiple variations, right? How you can do expansion program, but we want to show you the central framework and the core steps of the expansion playbook, and explain the importance of each of the steps. As always, you guys are very welcome to jump in, ask any questions, and we'll cover them live. And let us know in the chat where you are all joining us from. Again, broadcasting from Villarreal, Spain.
Valencia, Spain. Wanted to drop other 2 cents in terms of the importance of expansion and retention these days, especially where we have seen a big shift from kind of growth at all costs, where a lot of companies back in 2022, going even a little bit in 2023, but definitely the big shift started to happen back in 2023, where the abundance of VC capital as it used to be before, it became more expensive getting the investments, and we have started to see a big shift where the companies are now looking at more sustainable, cost-effective growth. And the core of many B2B companies, especially SaaS companies, the core growth engine is not acquisition. Actually, when you look at the percent of revenue that is generated, the most important part is through existing customers, through retention, number one, and then, of course, expansion. And when you're selling into enterprise accounts, it is really the biggest opportunity is to really grow that deal within that enterprise account. And I think this is very relevant from the perspective of the change in the market. A lot of companies are facing that. Not all companies are necessarily aware of the importance of this, but let's hope we'll now share some light on that and give some insights into why you should be thinking about it and how to think about it as well. Hello, everybody. I see also somebody from Spain join. Germany. Today we are more on the European side of the Atlantic, but as always, looking forward to jump in. So
I also think it's because there are several holidays in the US. Thursday and Friday are off, and probably somebody decided to as well to extend the long weekend from today. So jokes aside, we are going to explain this framework step by step and share the critical steps. But in a nutshell, the key, let's say the key pillars of expansion are, number one, understand the needs of, or the reason, the buying triggers of your champion, of person who initially purchased your product, and how your product impacts the jobs to be done, and also how it's aligned with the strategic initiatives of that company, of that specific business unit. Step number two, or let's say the second core pillar, accelerating time to value. you're not going to successfully run successful expansion program if you don't have a satisfied champion, if you don't have a customer that actually gained value from your product, right? So this is one of the most important things. You need to accelerate time to value that they get. And the third critical pillar is making sure that your champion becomes a hero of the organization. So you need to create internal case study and then help, or let's say leverage this person to be able to influence other business units or other regional teams. And lastly, in terms of selection, where you're going to head, to what units you are going to sell, or to what teams, right? How you're going to structure expansion program. It would be very similar to the process of new pipeline generation. You need to let's say make these bets, as we always say. Define the units with the highest likelihood to become a sales opportunity. Define the units or the teams, right, that are likely to buy your product. This is the key, because I know that whenever teams mention to us that they do expansion, in most cases there is just an opportunistic thinking. So let's say we are here in Spain, we have the customer, let's say we are selling to the regional team here in Spain, but we want to get in the US. And we have no, there is no evidence, and there are no signals, and there is no data that proves our decision, but just we know that it would be cool to sell to the US office and put it on our website as the logo, right? So this opportunistic thinking is very similar to new pipeline generation. That's the first thing. The second one, that's the way how teams are doing this expansion. It just, send an email saying, hey, I mean, I would be generalizing obviously here, but it more or less looks like, okay, we're already your vendor, we helped your unit in Spain with this and that, let's have a demo, right? And then just rinse and repeat through multiple touch points, cold email, cold messaging, cold calling, etc. But in reality, these programs, at least we have never seen that they work successfully. So with that being said, let's go into we have 7 critical steps when that you need to apply when develop your ABM expansion playbook. The first step, I always say, is that you need to embed customer research into your client success, and you either involve your client success team into it, or account owner, or the marketing person. So would you like to jump, Vlad, and
Absolutely.
talk about?
So I'd like to address this from 2 perspectives. I think the first perspective is what are the insights that we're trying to get here, and the second perspective is, okay, how can we actually embed this in our ongoing operations in a way that it's not an extra step for the customers, that we are not asking them to do us a favor by joining an interview or joining a call, but that it feels a natural part of the customer relationship, so that you're actually using that to develop a deeper customer relationship instead of asking them for an extra favor 6 months after you haven't spoke to them, or 2 years after you haven't spoke to them, which is actually often the case what we see with our clients when we talk to them, okay, as one of the steps to start speaking to their customers. We hear very often a lot of hesitation. The reason is that they actually haven't spoken to them in a very long time. And that is actually a bad sign, because as we know, the majority of customers churn silently. So if you're not having any conversation, if you don't know what's going on, it doesn't mean that no news is good news. It means that potentially you could be having a churn that is being developed there. Anyhow, go back to the customer insights. Now, you want to collect different kinds of insights, and the way that I would like to group them is, I want you to think about it. Okay, we want to collect the set of insights that will help us, like Andrei said, promote the champion as the hero within the organization. So the success of the initial implementation or a project, right? So anything that has to do with that, in a similar way that you would collect input about the case study. But I think what's also very important is to also capture the ongoing changes in the strategic priorities of your target accounts. Because if you're thinking about churn prevention, and also if you're thinking about expansion as in not going to other business units, but as in upselling, you need to understand the internal evolution. You need to understand, obviously, if the account is using your product to its fullest potential for the needs that they have, but also how these needs are evolving. Because if the needs evolve beyond the initial use case, you're not aware of it, and the account, just like people, the users, they just assume that your product might not be able to support it. They might actually already start looking for alternatives without even maybe realizing that you might be able to fulfill their needs. So this is to prevent churn, or of course to maybe upsell additional products and services, features, etc., etc. So just to summarize, number one, you want to collect all the relevant information about so that you are able to create a kind of a case study, internal case study from that target account, the first implementation, the first project. You also want to understand their buying journey and understand the reasons for they bought, etc. And then you also want to capture these evolving needs. But how do you do that, and how do you embed that within the ongoing operations? Well, you will have kind of natural highlights or natural important milestones and touch points with that account. For example, after the successful sale, when you have won the deal, this is the moment where you can ask them about their buyer journey, like what was happening in the business before decided to buy a product like yours, who else was involved, what were the main purchase criteria that you might not be aware of, who else was involved in buying process, what were the main reasons that they selected you, who did they compare to, who did they compare you to, and what was the main reason they decided to choose your product, right? These are all the things that are going to be very fresh in their mind the moment that you win the sale. That's also, by the way, another moment there is immediately after winning the sale is to obviously start working on, let's say, criteria for successful implementation. And hopefully that's already built in the sale and you know what it means to be successful, right? You already have the KPIs agreed up front. Okay, how are we going to evaluate the success of this implementation, which will be the next part. And Andre mentioned, let's help them accelerate time to value. In other words, let's help them achieve those implementation KPIs as soon as possible. Let's make sure that they're actually achieving them to avoid churn and to create value and create a happy customer, right? That might become an advocate. Now, after successful implementation, this is a moment to do two things. First of all, this is the moment to start talking about the value that your product is creating for them. This is the moment where you can start actually getting the insights into the case study. Or if there are still some missing parts to understand, maybe what's being missed, and to make sure that you're fixing that. But actually, there is another point here, which is this is also a moment, if you see that you have a happy customer, it is a moment to think about referrals. I think this is something that a lot of people miss. And referrals can be made in a very low threshold, small ask. And what I mean by that is, let's say you have a happy customer and they have just went through a successful implementation, you will have a call with them, and then you could do a bit of research and see who this customer is connected to, who this person is connected to from the industry, from other accounts that could be your potential customers in the industry, right? So, and then you could have that conversation. You can ask them about their experience, and they may share, how happy they were with this, etc., etc. You may ask them like, okay, I know that we have, maybe you can say like, okay, I know that we have an internal NDA and we might not be able to create a public case study, right? If you don't have that NDA, obviously this would be the moment to ask them to create a case study, which is really important. But even if you have an NDA, you could ask them basically, you know what, I know we have the NDA, we can't create a public case study, but would you mind if I just like produced an internal case study that we could only share with you to promote the good work that you and your team have been doing within your organization, right? In a lot of cases, ambitious managers and team contributors will appreciate actually, promoting them as, like Andre said, the heroes within their organization. And then as a next ask, you could be, hey, by the way, I saw that you're connected with such and such. And I was wondering, do you think they would also be a good, like the company they're working, they seem like they have a similar organization, they could also benefit from a product like this. And then if they say, yes, indeed, or I don't know this person, they say, yeah, indeed, like, yeah, we worked in the past on that and that. This would be a moment to ask for referral, and you could just say, hey, would you mind if I just email them with you in CC and start a conversation about it. Okay. Next, there are other points where you can naturally embed customer insights. Maybe currently you don't have these kind of key moments, right? But what you can do is, a lot of companies organize custom events. These are big events that are organized maybe once a year. This is a great moment to send a few of your people, and task them to do some quick interviews with the customers that are going to attend those events. Maybe there's some other industry events where you have the opportunity to meet your customers, where you can again interview them. And obviously, in any other touch points between the customer and the customer success team or the account management team, this is another moment where you can embed some of these key questions to collect these insights, and like I said, you want to understand the success of the implementation, the value that you're creating for them, but also you want to understand their evolving needs so that you can proactively help them fulfill those needs, either with your product to prevent the churn, to potentially enable an upsell within that team. And this would be the main things to understand. And one last thing to wrap it all up, I think what you also, I spoke about it, referrals as they relate to other companies that your champion may be connected to, maybe his former employer, etc. But you can also be thinking about, and I think here we can start talking about internal expansion, is also to start getting the insights into other business units within the organization. And when we say business units, depending on the product, this could mean different departments, this could mean different regions and regional teams, this could mean literally different business units or different brands if you're selling into, like, for example, consumer good company. So it really a little bit depends what this means, but you can basically boil it down to a different buying group, right? So this is not the buying group that you have initially sold to, but potential other buying groups. And your goal is to start with your champion, getting the insights into the needs and the priorities of other buying groups, but also, whenever possible, of course, starting to get not necessarily direct referrals, but maybe introductions, or helping being connected to these new buying groups. So this is how you should think about embedding the research within your ongoing operations.
I would put now it into practical context, how you're going to get started with it, right? That might be the most important question. So the first step here is sitting down and always, it's not enough to emphasize on it. It's one of the most critical steps. You must be involved as, if you are in marketing, you must be involved into account planning. quite often what happens is that marketers or ABM marketers, ABM leads, they just receive account plans from sales without having no context and no understanding how these plans were created, right? So you must be involved into this account planning. Next step, you look at all of these accounts and you define what are the accounts that have expansion potential, right? Either in terms of upsells or cross-sells or widening, basically widening your solution inside this organization, getting more wallet share. The next step, when you define these accounts, you need to segment these accounts into two buckets. Do we know that these accounts already got value from our product, or we don't know, right? Because then you create two different playbooks. For those that already got value from your product, you start with what Vlad shared. You invite your champion for the interview. You need to get a few things from the champion. So first of all, you need to understand the business triggers, right? What led, in ideal world, you need to gain these insights way before you sell, right? That should be a part of your sales process. What led them to buy product like yours, right? What were the strategic initiatives, etc. But it will also help you to understand if that buyer belongs to a specific buying unit, that will understand what are typical challenges of these champions that they might have. You can talk about the global initiatives and also ask if the champion knows about the internal initiatives of different regions or units. Now, when you collect these insights, you try to gain a few things. In ideal world, if you can get case study, that would be fantastic. Like Vlad said, if no, then you can just agree on the internal case study and ask one of the best things, ask about, would you be up if just two of us, let's say, or our SME, subject matter expert, and you will co-host an internal webinar for different for specific business units or for the regional teams, whatever you like, depending on your expansion priorities, right? To explain how to improve their specific jobs to be done. And this is the workshop where basically you present the best practices, you talk about the common challenges, the inefficiencies in the jobs to be done in the processes, etc. And then your champion presents how they are solving it and the results they are getting. After this, you suggest the debriefing and basically creating these personalized solutions, right? In a nutshell, this is how the process looks like for the company, let's say for these accounts that you know they are getting value from your product and there is a tangible value. Now, that would be the second segment, as we mentioned. The companies that you want to sell to, you know there is expansion potential, but you have no idea if they are getting value from it. And maybe this is exactly the step that Vlad already mentioned, that they might not be using your product fully. And this is the red flag that you don't have a good relationship and they might churn whenever your contract ends, right? So this is critical. You need to ensure that you have a playbook to basically accelerate time to value and to prevent the churn. In this case, you need to define with account owners and maybe depending on your team setup with the client success team, how can you accelerate this time to value, right? How can you involve your champions? Because when they were buying your product, they were basically putting their neck, right? Depending obviously on the cost of your product, and it was their responsibility, and you need to help them. If you ignore this, then you are likely to deal with churn. Well, now, especially in the ABM space, we hear this a lot. A lot of companies purchase ABM software, but in reality, just only few people are using it, and they don't understand how to use the entire product, and they just use the bare minimum, let's say the intent data. But then you can get any cheaper solution, if you will, right, and not pay premium price for the solution like this. So this is the problem. But when like these few people just use a tiny part of your product and the rest of the team is not using it, then there would be always questions from CFO, right, from key stakeholders, so why we are paying the premium price. So you won't be able to justify it, right? And it always leads to the churn. So in a nutshell, this is how you separate these two playbooks and put them in action. And obviously, lastly, that would be one of the most important parts. How do you select the buying units and buying, or let's say the regional teams? We said this in the beginning. It's in some sense, it's similar to the new pipeline generation. You need to define units that are likely to buy, right? You can't just try to sell to all of them. So we always invert this process that we establish for new logo ABM. We segment all units by the level of their awareness. Do they know us? Do they know our solution, right? The second, if they know us, do we know their need or strategic initiative? Because the fact, so let's say you are selling to the Germany team or to the Spanish team, but it doesn't mean that, let's say, team in another region, in UKI, for example, they have the same vision, and maybe they even don't have a buy-in of the challenge that your product solves, and they don't prioritize the solution, right? So quite often you need to take care of these things and just avoid, wish list or opportunistic thinking when selecting the accounts. So these are the important steps that you need to incorporate. I think one of the most important also issues is the engagement with the buying committee groups, right? When you identify how you're going to engage with them. As I said, you can't just send, send a bunch of emails saying, hey, we are selling to a team in Spain, right? So go and get our solution. Basically, let's book a demo. So I think this is one of the most important parts. So Vlad, if you would like to jump in, and just we can cover this last part when we define the units, right? We know the playbook, how we're going to engage with them. And I think also if align this with two playbooks, right? Either that we want to run internal workshop with our champion, or if we want to do this product training to ensure that the team is getting value and that they're not churned, that would be cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of the playbooks or ways in which you can engage the buyers that we have spoken about over many different episodes in the context of engaging net new accounts and generating pipeline. All right, a lot of the same techniques can be applied here. All right, there is one very important difference, and that is that you have internal champions, you have internal users who might be able to connect you to your target buyers from the other accounts. In addition, what you can do as well to generate awareness within those accounts is you can do, for example, the interview they have created with the champion to create the case study itself, etc. You can promote this internally. When I say promote this internally, this can take different forms. It could just be like literally just promoting this with paid ads on the level of the account if the account is sufficiently large. This can take, you can have internal teams helping you promote this. Like, for example, we have worked with a client where they had many, so their customers were these big mining companies that had very different regional mines, I guess, right, where they did operations, and they had a kind of a central team that was in charge of technological decisions. Like they would explore new technologies, they would discover new technologies that can be used by different mines, and then they would suggest these technologies to be used by the different mines. These were technical people who would discover our client's product, but they wouldn't necessarily equipped nor they would have the time to really spread this news internally. So there, for example, it was all about helping that internal champion spread the word to the rest of the organization. Andre mentioned, for example, a workshop or a webinar that you could organize together with your champion where you could explain how you have implemented the product, basically kind of a live case study, but again, internally for that account. And then again, you could be promoting that as well as part of the awareness creation. You could be partnering maybe with the internal communications team to help you promote it. Like I said, a lot of the net new techniques. So for example, obviously like connecting with those target buyers on social, for example, on LinkedIn, and engaging with them and starting conversations with them, like a lot of the different playbooks that we shared. Now, if you're organizing that webinar, internal webinar or internal workshop, whatever form of event that you're running, this gives another set of opportunities to create touch points to engage those target buyers, such as, for example, if they register for that event, you can reach out to them to collect questions. You can obviously engage them during this event, make it a little bit more interactive, foresee some specific interactions to maybe get more information from them in terms of their challenges, priorities, etc., and obviously as a follow-up. So you can, in summary, leverage a lot of the, let's say, same or similar techniques that we would use to reach out to net new buyers, such as social, etc. You can obviously ask your champion for introductions whenever that's possible. I mean, I can definitely tell you that in some cases this is possible. You might collaborate with the internal communications team in promoting that internal workshop, because you're not promoting your own vendor workshop, you're actually promoting this champions workshop, right? You're on their behalf, promoting their project, like their success, you're not promoting yourself. So of course, as a consequence, yes, but not on the front line, let's say. And of course, whenever you have that workshop, this gives you an opportunity to have additional touch points. This is how I would approach it. Anything else that you would add there, Andrei?
Actually, I was thinking before this podcast episode to share one of how initially did I come up with the expansion playbook, sharing my experience on Kimberly Clark, but then I thought it could be a little bit complicated for people because it's an FMCG and slightly different use case comparing to the technical, let's say, to the tech space. So what I was thinking, and I see a good question from Manikandan, so we can cover this as well. But what I was thinking, how can we wrap up this, let's say, the expansion playbook? I was thinking just to share the expansion from the buying perspective, and we can quickly chat about it. So to give you a full context, guys, so recently we switched from Notion to ClickUp, right? And that was a specific reason for this. We're looking for a solution, and initially we checked Basecamp and then decided to move to ClickUp to simplify client projects, also internal tasks, etc. We were using Notion for this, and Notion became clumsy and complicated and absolutely not helpful and not useful. So from this specific reason, Vlad was doing research, and Vlad signed up for ClickUp. Obviously, we are too small for ClickUp to do proactive expansion and follow all of these steps, right? But I think it could be nice if I will interview and we can explain how the steps could look like if ClickUp were deciding to do it, right? So the first step would be Vlad signing up, and normally there should be the custom interview. So we can just maybe simulate it, and I will just quickly interview it, imagining. So Fullfunnel was selected as a company with an expansion potential, right? And I'm working now for ClickUp. So let's simulate it. But I think it could be good, very good to show how that might look like in practice. And also, I know that we don't have this. We are struggling a little bit that they don't do this for us. So we are not using the full potential of the product. But anyhow, we selected Fullfunnel, and the first step, as I mentioned, so we need to accelerate time to value and understand the reason. So I was just like, my first step would be inviting Vlad for the interview, asking, hey Vlad, would you mind, I just want to make sure that you get maximum value out of your product, would you mind to jump on 15 minute or like 20 minutes call to talk about it, right? So the first question that I would ask you, what led you to look for our product, right? What are your strategic initiatives and what triggered you to start looking for the solutions?
Yeah, so we grew our team, and our onboarding new employee wanted to have our SOPs and our playbooks documented in one place, and also integrated with project management. That is why we started looking for a tool. We did use Notion in the past. We switched from Notion to ClickUp because we didn't feel like Notion was actually a good fit for what we were looking for.
Awesome. So the second step that I would like to understand, right? So now we see the strategic initiatives. Now I would like to understand what are specific operations that you need our product help with.
Okay, this is so just like on a meta level, Andrei didn't just say yes, okay, thank you, okay, let me just show you the product, and I think this is a mistake that I see a lot of people make when they're doing this kind of interviews. Instead of that, he decided to go one level deeper, right? To understand really what were these, in our case, what were these operations that we wanted to use and ClickUp for. Anyhow, so let me switch back to the role.
Yes.
And this is to say that mainly it has to do with our internal processes. So we are looking to onboard somebody who is helping us with the operations, mainly around content production, around preparing and managing client projects and our courses. Let's say these are the three key operations that we are looking to manage using ClickUp.
So just to summarize, you want to do the project manager, and I assume that the project manager will be used on the product, right? To orchestrate the projects, control the tasks, etc. Then you mentioned the content team, and potentially you would like to streamline content production, having content calendar in place and making sure that you follow the path, right? Then on the strategic level, from the CEO perspective, you want to look at all the operations, how everything functions, right? Are you hitting the, let's say, milestones and targets, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, and now a very quick question. So do all of the teams that and roles that I just mentioned, do all of them know about our product and understand how to use it?
No, currently it is only the operations person and myself mainly using the product.
And what are other tools they are using?
Other tools that the other teams are using for example, the content management is mainly Google Docs. I think they're probably still using parts of the Notion. They're still using Notion for parts of the process, excuse me. And in terms of the metrics, I think like it's mainly a combination of Google Docs and Notion.
And have they ever shared that they are not convenient with this
Absolutely,
solution?
absolutely. This was like one of the main reasons why we actually started to consider the switch and started to switch to ClickUp. So for sure.
And would it be okay with you if I will create a few, let's say, a few ideas on how to simplify onboarding of these teams and make sure that they will switch from Notion and Google Docs, and other teams, they will know how to use all of these features, and share it with you first?
I think it would be very helpful for me at this stage to first of all understand myself how we can support these different use cases for our different teams, so that I can first evaluate, right? Whether this is a good fit for the needs of these teams, and then any help that you could provide in me then presenting this to the team would be very very much appreciated.
And this is the simulation of this conversation that gives you an understanding of how your champions are thinking about the solutions, right? So to be able them to promote your product internally, they need to understand exactly what Vlad said. How this different, what are the benefits for these different units? Okay, so maybe they are not convenient for them, and we want to have everything in one place, but at the same time, we have project manager, and until the things are done, maybe we won't really care if they are doing it in Google Docs or whatever until everything is on schedule, right? And all is done. So this is exactly the reason. This is, I feel, where most companies are falling when they're creating their expansion playbook. The first step, you need to understand either, depending to whom you are talking to, right? To the economical buyer, to the decision maker, or to the specific business leaders, right? They need to see the whole picture. If they are managing multiple teams, right, they need to see whole picture how these teams would be benefiting. And you need to dig deeper, because without these insights, like what if you look at the insight what Vlad shared with me, imagine that Fullfunnel was like 1K organization or 10K. I don't know. I don't wish this, by the way. Never, ever. I had enough of 9 years working for these organizations. Jokes aside, so imagine if we were at that size, right? That means that from this conversation, I understood that there is a content team, right? That is probably not convenient with their current status quo, and they're using ineffective solutions, and I need to sell to them. And this team, they didn't buy the license for them, or licenses, let's put it like this, right? That's the first thing. The second one, we have project manager, and we mentioned a couple of things. So we just bought the, let's say, task management solution, but we didn't buy the documentation, company's wiki, etc. And this is where basically upselling happens, right? So we bought just a few, let's say, a set of a few features, but there is a need for more. And I need to create a case for this. Why buying this? Why buying this now, right? And what would be the benefits for the organization, for this specific economical buyer? What would be the benefits for the power users, right? How it's better than their, let's say, existing way of doing things or running certain operations. And then based on this, defining the right training path. So like we mentioned, it could be the, like presenting it to the champion and then hosting the internal training, or reaching out, engaging with folks, explaining how we can help with their specific operations, because this is purely one-to-one play. Feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that even for an organization of our size, like I mentioned, one use case that could even like lead ClickUp into a real expansion, where I mentioned client projects. So we work with many clients, and each of these clients has an internal team. And if we would decide, I'm not saying that we would, or it would make sense for us, I'm just like in this hypothetical example, a good salesperson would try to dig deeper in that and try to understand, okay, what are the kind of most important KPIs when it comes to these consulting projects? How many people are involved? How are you communicating with those consulting clients, excuse me, today? What are the bottlenecks when it comes to that communication, project management, reporting, et cetera, et cetera? What would be, the needs that are related to that, and eventually maybe end up selling us a deal where we could onboard many different consulting clients and end up paying, instead of a couple of licenses, 2, 3, 4 licensing, paying potentially an equivalent of dozens or even maybe hundreds.
Yeah, and the point is as well, if the company would dive deeper into our processes, they would see that we don't use, I feel, maybe 60% of their features currently. I'm not saying that they are not valuable, but just simply we didn't see a value and we didn't prioritize the usage of these features. So that's the first thing, right? So there is no need to pay. And if they would send us transactional emails, hey, we have this fantastic feature, go and buy it, just would immediately be deleted and ignored, right?
Well, I mean, they did send us a lot of emails. Whenever you sign up to any SaaS product, you get tons of emails promoting your shit, but you just ignore it all because This is what you're used to getting, and you're just trying to focus on your own specific case. By the way, ClickUp did reach to us, and we had this onboarding call, but it wasn't the person who did it wasn't really trained in upselling or really probing for the cases. But it was very helpful for me to understand the product better.
Which leads us back to the first steps that we shared with you, right? To be able to sell, you need to build relationship with your champion, but also you need to make your champion a hero of the organization, and you need to understand the buying reasons, how your product is helping, and if it's not helping yet, how can you help them to get that value out of product, right? So then what are the different units, and the higher you are climbing, right? Maybe they don't have, you are selling just one business unit, and this business unit might not be fully aware of how the things look like in different units, etc. But at least you can understand like how the things are done. Then you can define either the business unit expansion, right, or maybe upselling to this business unit, diving deeper into their needs, operations, etc., and growing the value of that account. So quite often the teams, yeah, indeed, like in this case, they have the client success process, and then they can show us the product. But showing the product doesn't mean that it's helping us to fully adopt it, right? That's the difference. So to be able to have successful expansion and retention, you need to install these steps into the client success process, or literally what happens after the deal is signed, right? Building relationship with champion, diving deeper, understanding the needs, understanding the strategic initiatives, prioritizing based on these units or departments or regions, regional teams that you can sell to, and then step by step creating these internal use cases, and then defining the best possible engagement formats. Sometimes it would be like Vlad said, it won't be even possible to get a lot of insights from champion. They might be super busy, so you might get just 15 minutes. You can interview that process, you can get these insights, and then maybe you can't sell to other business units, completely different departments, right? But you can pick up these insights and start selling to the same units, but in different departments, referring to your champion, referring to this internal case study, and also doing a little bit of account research, understanding the current way of doing things, right? And then presenting them, sharing these personalized solutions with them. So in a nutshell, this is how you craft it, and just we wanted to share with you the full setup. So at the end, maybe let's pick up this question from Manikandan. If you want, Vlad, to
Absolutely. No, thank you. So the question was, yes, you projected it. It's basically one thing to get people to register to a webinar, to an event, but that registration doesn't always convert to an attendance to the webinar. So how can we increase attendance to any webinar? I think it actually starts from the topic, how well the webinar. I think like when it comes to any event or a webinar, education, let's say event, there are two most important things to consider. What is the topic and how did you position that event, and who is the speaker? I think like these are the two key points. So the better the speaker, the more. So, for example, if you're organizing an event with a speaker who is followed by a specific audience who is just waiting for an opportunity to hear them speak, I say speaker, I mean like it can be any expert. I don't mean like specifically like people who are trained public speakers, right? Just like any expert, where there is already an existing audience, where there is a lot of authority from that person. The more authority, the more that person is known by the audience, the higher the chance of people actually registering, also attending that audience. It starts from there. So like so if you're just like putting random people and nobody knows them, the chance of you getting a successful event is very low. The next one is how you position this event. If this is yet another event, well, first of all, if it is kind of like very product centric, if it's like clear that you basically what you want to do is a product pitch, then there is also a very low chance of getting people to attend unless they're really interested in the product Well, if they're really interesting product, they can also reach out to you and have a personal one-on-one demo. So what will be the reason for them to come? So having some trust that people will actually get some good education and how you position it. So let's say if we want to now organize an event, even like with a good audience, a good following, good trust from our audience, if we said, oh, we'll do yet another webinar about, let's say, LinkedIn lead generation or something like that, and there is like a lot of content about this topic, well, people might not want to join. But if we want to organize an event about how to run account-based marketing on LinkedIn, this is a more unique positioning of a similar topic that might attract more audience to the topic. Next, how you're promoting it and how you're actually what you can do as well is you can connect to people who register to the event and start engagement before the event. This will help you also increase the attendance. What I mean by that is that you can like literally, I mean, this is going to be helpful both in terms of generating those relationships and potentially later pipeline, connecting to them. For example, let's say I invited Andre as an expert to speak about account-based marketing. And I have attendees, and let's say Christina, for example, here is an attendee, and I'm reaching out to Christina. Hey, Christina, thanks a lot for registering for that event about ABM with Andre. He asked me to collect questions so that we make sure that we are addressing the topics that are most relevant for people who register. You know, what is the one thing that you're hoping to get out from this webinar, for example? This could be a way for me to kind of reach out to people. You can also obviously, you know, basic stuff like reminders. And then I think also there is like one last thing that I wanted to mention, and that is like your first event is probably not going to be the one with the greatest number of registration and greatest number of attendees. I think you need to show, you need to deliver on your promise. So if you are known for running events, if you become known for running events that are actually valuable, educational, where you share practical insights, practical things, where you deliver a lot of value, your chance of having the next event better is going to increase. So don't look at it as a one-off thing. Don't say, okay, we tried it, we didn't get a lot of result. The first time when we started with our, for example, live podcast, we had 7 guests. We then grew to having several hundreds, and sometimes when we run these webinars, we have more than 1,000 people register and more than 500 people join on those events. But that's not where we started. It takes some time. It takes basically to deliver on your promise enough times that you become known as somebody who is able to do that, where people are going to get value so that they come over again to the event. So that was a long answer to your simple question.
Yeah, but I think we have covered everything. So it was, I feel it was really good conversation. Also, we tried our best, not just to keep it theoretical, but also show you practically how that might look like using our recent case, right? Also, you can see it from the buyer perspective and from the seller perspective, how you can orchestrate these playbooks, right? And just put all of these insights into action. Let us know if that was helpful. In the chat, feel free to type your favorite emoji or just share quick feedback. And meanwhile, just to let you know, in the upcoming weeks, we'll invite another client. And this time, I'm super excited. I'm always excited to talk about our clients, but what is cool, because we'll invite a salesperson. So you'll see how ABM looks like from the sales perspective. What is the role of sales in account-based marketing? We schedule it for 11th of December, right, Vlad?
That's in 2 weeks' time. So I think it's 11 or 12, right? So it's 11, you're right.
So stay tuned. There would be a lot of cool stuff coming in. And wishing you a great rest of the week. Take care, everybody. Cheers.
Bye.